Janet Jackson has retracted her earlier statements regarding Vice President Kamala Harris, acknowledging that her previous comments were misguided and rooted in misinformation. Jackson, in a public address, walked back her remarks about Harris, admitting that the vice president is indeed a black woman, a fact she initially cast doubt on. This recent clarification is a significant pivot from Jackson's earlier stance, where she questioned Harris's racial heritage. Jackson's comments originally raised eyebrows when she suggested that Harris's father was not black, but actually a white man. The claims created a stir, particularly given the vice president's well-documented background as the daughter of a Jamaican father of African descent and an Indian mother. Jackson's remarks seemed to cast a shadow over Harris's identity, implying that her racial background was somehow in question, which sparked confusion and criticism. In light of the backlash, Mo El-Masri, Janet Jackson's longtime manager, stepped forward to provide an explanation. He clarified that Janet's earlier comments were based on misinformation she had come across and unfortunately repeated without verifying. According to El-Masri's statement, Jackson had heard these false claims from an external source and, believing them to be true at the time, voiced them publicly. El-Masri reiterated that Janet has now recognized the error and wants to set the record straight, ensuring that the public understands her intention was never to mislead or undermine Harris's identity. The clarification highlights how misinformation can spread quickly, especially when echoed by influential figures. Jackson's team has been quick to emphasize that her comments were not a reflection of any malice or deliberate attempt to spread falsehoods, but rather a mistake born from unverified information. Jackson herself has expressed regret for the confusion her remarks caused and emphasized her respect for Kamala Harris and the historic significance of her role as the first female vice president of African and South Asian descent. By retracting her statement, Jackson is aiming to not only correct the record but also to underline the importance of being informed and responsible with the information shared publicly, especially regarding sensitive topics like race and identity. Mo El-Masri, Janet Jackson's longtime manager, has provided further clarification regarding Janet's previous comments about Vice President Kamala Harris. El-Masri emphasized that Janet holds deep respect for Harris's achievements as both a black and Indian woman, acknowledging and celebrating the vice president's unique and powerful heritage. He made it clear that Janet fully recognizes Kamala Harris's dual identity as a woman of African and South Asian descent, and understands the significance of accurately representing these facts in public discourse. El-Masri highlighted that Janet is committed to the importance of truth, especially when it comes to matters of race and identity, knowing how impactful such representations can be on both a personal and societal level. El-Masri's comments come in response to a controversy sparked by Janet's remarks during an interview with The Guardian, published on Friday. In the interview, Janet told the publication that she had heard Kamala Harris was not actually black, stating she was told that they discovered her father was white. This statement understandably raised questions, as it contradicted what is widely known about Harris's background. Kamala Harris's father, Donald Harris, is a Jamaican-born economist of African descent, while her mother, Shyamala Gopalan, was an Indian-American cancer researcher and civil rights activist. Harris has consistently identified as both black and Indian, reflecting the complexity and richness of her multiracial background. However, Janet's earlier remarks appeared to cast doubt on this well-documented narrative. According to Janet, she had been told by someone that Harris's father was white, which led her to repeat this misinformation in the interview. The statement was met with confusion and criticism, as it contradicted both Harris's own account of her identity and the public record of her heritage. In his clarification, El-Masri was keen to stress that Janet now recognizes the error and regrets repeating the false information. He underscored that Janet had no intention of questioning Kamala Harris's identity or undermining her historic achievements. On the contrary, Janet has always admired Harris for breaking barriers as a woman of color in the highest echelons of political power. Her remarks, El-Masri insisted, were not made out of malice but were based on unverified information that Janet unfortunately accepted as fact at the time. The incident serves as a reminder of the dangers of misinformation, particularly when shared by prominent figures whose words carry significant weight. El-Masri's statement reaffirms Janet's commitment to responsible public discourse, acknowledging the need for celebrities and public figures to ensure that the information they share is accurate and well-sourced. By walking back her comments, Janet not only corrects the record but also underscores the importance of accountability in the public sphere. Janet's respect for Kamala Harris, as reiterated by El-Masri, goes beyond just recognition of her racial identity. Janet is acutely aware of the broader implications of Harris's success, especially as the first woman of Black and Indian descent to hold the office of Vice President in the United States. For many people, Harris represents a powerful symbol of possibility and progress, and Janet deeply understands the importance of celebrating that without allowing misinformation to cloud the truth. Kamala Harris's racial identity has been a topic of much discussion, especially following her historic rise as the first woman of Black and Indian descent to hold the office of Vice President in the United States. While her mother, Shyamala Gopalan, was an Indian-American cancer researcher and civil rights activist, her father, Donald Harris, is a prominent Jamaican-American economist of African descent. This diverse heritage is precisely why Harris identifies as both Black and Indian, reflecting the richness of her multicultural background. Her identity has been a significant part of her public narrative, symbolizing the intersection of multiple racial and cultural communities within American politics. However, Harris's racial background became a point of contention in the public sphere, particularly during her run for the presidency, when former President Donald Trump made claims that Harris was using her Black identity for political gain. Trump's comments, made in late July, suggested that Harris had turned Black only to advance her political career, sparking a national conversation about race, identity, and the authenticity of multiracial figures in positions of power. These remarks were seen by many as an attempt to undermine Harris's legitimacy as a candidate and as a woman of color. The inflammatory nature of the comments only further fueled speculation and rumors surrounding Harris's racial identity. In the weeks following Trump's statements, other public figures began to echo similar sentiments. One of the most notable was rapper Lil Pump, who parroted Trump's claims, contributing to the perpetuation of the narrative that Harris's Black identity was somehow disingenuous. These remarks, though lacking any factual basis, continued to stir controversy and confusion among the public, with many questioning Harris's heritage despite the clear record of her family background. Amidst this national conversation about Kamala Harris's race, Janet Jackson found herself unintentionally caught up in the discourse. During a recent interview, Janet repeated a rumor she had heard, claiming that Harris's father was actually white, thus casting doubt on her identification as a Black woman. This statement, made without verification, quickly gained attention and added fuel to the ongoing debate about Harris's identity. However, Janet has now come forward to clarify her position, admitting that she may not have had all the facts when she made the claim. Mo El-Masri, Janet's longtime manager, has since confirmed that Janet's remarks were based on misinformation. He explained that Janet had repeated false claims she had come across from unreliable sources and that she did not intend to question Kamala Harris's racial identity or undermine her accomplishments. Janet is now coming clean, acknowledging that she misspoke and expressing her respect for Harris's achievements as a woman of both Black and Indian descent. This public retraction is a significant step for Janet, as it reflects her willingness to take responsibility for her words and to correct any inaccuracies that may have inadvertently contributed to the ongoing narrative. Janet's team has remained relatively quiet on the matter beyond El-Masri's clarification, but it is clear that Janet is eager to set the record straight and ensure that the facts are properly represented. The broader implications of this conversation about Kamala Harris's race highlight the complexities of identity in the public eye, especially for figures of multiracial backgrounds. For someone like Harris, whose identity bridges two racial and cultural communities, these discussions often take on heightened significance, particularly in a political landscape where race plays a central role in public discourse. By acknowledging her mistake, Janet Jackson is also reinforcing the importance of accurate representation and the dangers of spreading unverified information, especially when it comes to sensitive topics like race. At this time, further details from Janet's team have not been provided, but the acknowledgement itself marks a positive step toward fostering a more truthful and respectful conversation about identity.